Well, that's as it was made easier this week for groups who assist U.S. operations in Syria to receive military support from Washington. That's after President Obama waived part of the Arms Export Control Act. But among U.S. lawmakers, there are some who oppose the move.
We must stop this madness. We must stop arming terrorists. I'm introducing the Stop Arming Terrorists Act today to prohibit taxpayer dollars from being used to support terrorists.
Well, commenting on the decision to waive restrictions, the U.S. State Department said they can't guarantee that the weapons won't eventually change hands.
The assistance that we provide to these groups is obviously done under careful monitoring. But, of course, I'm never going to be able to say on any given battlefield, and we've talked about this before, that equipment, assistance can't change hands. But we haven't seen it recently, and in fact, to the contrary, as ISIL has lost territory, as it's been on the run.
In the fight against ISIL, we cannot rely on an Assad regime that terrorizes its own people. Instead, we must strengthen the opposition as the best counterweight to extremists like ISIL.
Can you tell us what the total number of trained fighters remains?
It's a small number, and the ones that are in the fight is we're talking four or five.
This train and equip program has not, frankly, lived up to what we had initially thought.
It looks like President Obama is even loosening the standards for putting weapons into the hands of people that we don't even pretend are vetted moderates, like that fiasco with those 4 or 5 fighters that they were able to produce some months back. Now we're talking about throwing weapons out there like Christmas cookies to people that we know are terrorists.
Well, that's as Russia's foreign minister is questioning America's commitment to fighting extremists in Syria, as Moscow helps the push to fully liberate Aleppo from militants.
As for Jabhat al-Nusra, the US not only doesn't touch it, but during all our discussions, they tried in every way to formulate agreements so al-Nusra was not attacked. Of course, we can't accept that because al-Nusra is a terrorist organization, as admitted by the United Nations, the US, Russia, and other countries. During the meeting, it's so far not clear if al-Nusra gets the same condemnation as ISIL.
The Syrian government are just trying to remove an appalling bunch of people. These rebels, so-called rebels, are really fundamentalist Islamic fighters, and ISIS, and they're holding the people, the population of Aleppo, as human shields. People don't want to live under this sort of dictatorship, the theocratic dictatorship. So at least the Syrian army, backed by the Russians, are actually getting rid of these people. And, you know, I don't think President Assad's the most fabulous man in the world, but at least he's bringing stability. The British government, and I think the various other governments who have been on the wrong side for too long, don't think this is a good idea, because we simply haven't got the guts to go ahead and do things, but the Russians have. They've backed the right side. They've decided that it's better, stability is better than having a terrorist, medieval religious organization running the country, and they think it's better to have a secular, albeit flawed, Assad government running it until something better is organized.
Syrian forces, supported by the Russian Air Force, have repelled an attack by ISIL terrorists on the ancient city of Palmyra. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, the terrorists were equipped with artillery, tanks, and armored vehicles. Russian planes carried out over 60 strikes targeting ISIL positions overnight. Palmyra fell into Islamic State hands in May 2015. It was retaken in March this year by Syrian troops with Russian air support. Numerous ancient monuments of World Heritage importance were saved from destruction. To another big story of the day, a landmark deal has been reached to drastically cut global oil production, the first agreement of its kind since 2001. It should help stabilize prices, which have slumped in recent years, causing havoc to oil-reliant economies worldwide. OPEC and non-cartel nations hammered out the details at a meeting which wrapped up in Vienna on Saturday.
We are happy to announce that a historic agreement was made.
Today's agreement means we can say cooperation between OPEC and non-OPEC countries has reached a new level.
Well, 11 non-OPEC states have joined the agreement. In total, they will cut production by over 500,000 barrels per day. Russia, as was expected, will shoulder the brunt of the decrease. Mexico comes second in slashing 100,000 barrels, and Oman's cut is reported to be the third largest. Emily Sue's in the Austrian capital for us. She spoke exclusively to the Saudi energy minister.
For the first time at a large scale, it brings so many countries, 11 non-OPEC plus the OPEC members, the 13. So this is really significant. It's voluntary, obviously, but it brings everybody to realize that we're on the same boat. It's not the interest of Saudi Arabia at the expense of Russia or vice versa. We all benefit together. If the tide rises, all boats will rise, as they say. I think it signifies that there are elements of trust that have built up. We have to reinforce it.
None of this came easy, and it only came after very lengthy, complicated negotiations. Tensions are especially high between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Saudi Arabia has been pushing for cuts, and Iran has been refusing to do so because it's more concerned with restoring oil output levels to pre-sanction levels. But from what we understand, the Russian President Vladimir Putin, while he played a very crucial and active role in making sure that Saudi Arabia and Iran can put aside their differences, and they were able to reach that November 30th deal. After that day, Russia was also the first to announce that they will shoulder half of that target that OPEC members have set for non-OPEC members, meaning that Russia is willing to cut 300,000 barrels per day in a bid to spearhead this effort and attract non-OPEC nations to join this historic joint oil production cut deal.
While the joint effort has been labelled historic by the parties involved, some oil-producing states were notable absentees, the US among them. We talked to an oil economist who thinks what America has instead been concentrating on, shale oil production or fracking, won't affect the market significantly.
We always said that when the price goes up, US shale oil producers will come back, but we should not exaggerate the threat of US shale oil producers. Remember, despite the rise in production up to 2014, shale oil producers were not behind the big glut in the market. It was OPEC members flooding the market with oil for political reasons. Still, the shale oil production will start to increase, but I am sure that because the fundamentals of the global oil markets are positive, when you add to them the cuts, I am very convinced that the price will start to go up, and the market could absorb a bit of increase from the US shale production.
Huge blasts hit the Turkish city of Istanbul and the Egyptian capital Cairo, leaving dozens dead and injured. We'll bring you the details right after this.